Hello and welcome to this month's webinar. My name's Tom Rowland and I'm the training team leader here at Health Assured. In this webinar, I will be talking to you about the current COVID-19 pandemic and how we can manage our return to work anxiety. Please feel free to pause, rewind or revisit this webinar as necessary to allow yourself a comfortable listening. As coronavirus pandemic restrictions are lifted, many of us will face physical and mental health challenges, including fear and anxiety as we start returning to work. Uncertainty and unpredictability can really create an unhealthy amount of fear and stress, especially when it's sustained over a long period of time. In this webinar, we will cover the basis for change, what this is, and why it's important to us as we prepare ourselves mentally for these events, with a specific focus on COVID-19. We will then look at anxiety and what this actually is and how to recognise this within ourselves and others. And to conclude, I've provided some practical tips and guidance on how we can look after and manage our anxiety when returning to work. To begin with, we're going to look at change management. Change management is a collective term for all approaches to prepare, support, and help individuals prepare for major changes. Consistently through this pandemic, we have had to adapt to new and unusual circumstances, whether this be adjusting to home working or being unable to work at all. We are now going to need to adjust once more to returning to work, but under new restrictions which won't be the same as we once remembered. This is unsettling for the majority of us and a very uneasy time. On a psychological level, most people are resistant to change, regardless of position within an organisation. The idea of change is frightening because you don't know what it means or what business as usual will look like afterwards. However, resisting change can lead to negativity, both in our professional lives and personal, as your mental health will undoubtedly suffer. One thing to remember is that every change couples uncertainty with opportunity, so it's important to do whatever you can to embrace the challenges heartily as they occur. In the current circumstance, there is a correlation that we may already be experiencing lower psychological well-being as a result of the lockdown, social distancing, and in some cases total isolation. Where psychological well-being is low, individuals are likely to view ambiguous events as threatening, which can be unhelpful and destructive in a setting where change is taking place. The only thing that is within all of our control in the current circumstance is how we mentally prepare for these changes that are either happening right now or will be happening in the near future. Individuals that are prepared for change feel good psychologically and keep their resilience levels high. In the latter half of this webinar, I'll be providing you all with some practical applications that we can do to prepare ahead of change and manage our anxiety when returning to work. Typically, there are 3 ways that all individuals react to change. It's important that you identify where you would typically fall here and ask yourself, is this the correct response, or should you put measures in place so that you can have a more appropriate response? One reaction is that we can be non-active. People in this category are resistant to change. If I don't address the issue, it's really not there. It won't happen to me, so I'm just going to continue to go about my business. Or they can say, it's not fair, why me? People who have this response don't move forward and stay stuck. They are choosing to pay later versus now approach. But is this realistic? The changes of returning to work are outside of our control and will happen, so we need to be prepared to manage this. Another reaction is that we can be reactive. People in this category make quick and rash decisions. They don't necessarily have all the facts, but make a decision anyway to eliminate their immediate stress and worry. This is a knee-jerk reaction. If you're informed you will be returning to the office, do you instantly have a negative reaction and refuse to do this based out of fear and anxiety without first establishing what are the plans going to be in place to ensure that you're working safely? This would eliminate your initial concerns. The ideal response that we should be having is to be proactive and positive. People in this category take time to consider the change, what impact it will have on them, and take the time to prepare. They understand that change is a necessary part of life. The more we feel we have control over the situation, the less stress and frustration we feel when we take charge of change and prepare. The most common reaction to change and preparing to work is anxiety. It's important to understand that anxiety is a natural response that everyone can experience. At times, anxiety can be helpful, but you need to ensure you have coping techniques to be able to deal with it productively. Anxiety can vary in severity, including how long it can last. Being able to recognise the signs and symptoms of anxiety can help you better support yourself and others. You may experience physical effects of anxiety such as palpitations, chest pains, dizziness or headaches. You can also experience psychological effects which could be present such as excessive fear and worry, irritability, impatience, anger or confusion. They're also signs of anxiety over a situation. You may also find that you're avoiding the situation or becoming withdrawn. These are behavioural effects of anxiety. All of these symptoms you may experience when thinking about returning to work after either a few days, weeks, or months. Back to work anxiety can be a particular problem for people who already struggle with clinical anxiety. Individuals who struggle with generalised or social anxiety may become overwhelmed with just the thought of getting back into a routine. The energy that it takes to be fully present at work can take its toll. This is all made worse when you have anxiety or worries over your physical health and the coronavirus world that we are now living in. One of the key issues that people with anxiety tend to experience is what-if thoughts, which can lead to worry over future scenarios that may or may not happen. So next, we're going to look at some practical tips that we can take to manage our anxiety when returning to work, considering COVID-19. The first thing to do when preparing to work is ensure that you are aware of all the recommended health and safety guidelines. Start step by step. Think about how you are going to be travelling to work and what you need to consider to make your journey safe for you. Then think about your working environment. Your employer will already have considered health and safety measures and will more than likely be prepared to answer any questions you may have. Feeling more prepared practically will alleviate a lot of your anxiety. Remember to wash your hands frequently, keep sanitizer and disinfectant wipes handy, wear a mask if needed and adhere to social distancing. Ensure that you're taking care of your physical health is of course important and will alleviate a lot of anxiety you may be facing. You need to ensure you are putting equal importance on taking care of your mental health and overall well-being. You can even combine the two. For instance, you could do a breathing exercise and take 5 deep abdominal breaths as you wash your hands for at least 20 seconds, as doing this at least 5 times a day can help reduce anxiety and even lower blood pressure. Healthy habits such as regular exercise, good nutrition, and at least 7 hours sleep a night can not only give your immune system a boost and keep you physically healthy, but also keep you mentally healthy. If you're aware that certain things may make your anxiety worse, then prepare for and avoid these situations. If you're worried about peak travel times, can you leave earlier than usual? Avoid crowded rooms and keep your workspace at least 2 metres apart from your nearest co-worker. The most important thing that I would recommend is having open communication with your line manager. It can be helpful to think about the source of your worries. If your workload is the problem, it might be worth politely bringing up the issue with your employer to find a solution. If your commute is the issue, it can be a good idea to inquire about flexible working, even if it's to continue working from home a day or 2 a week, or start and finishing at a different time to avoid the worst rush hour. Speaking with others about your worries can help alleviate them. As I've discussed throughout this webinar, the more you feel prepared, the less anxious you will feel. Preparing for returning to work can make the process less challenging. This might mean preparing lunches and dinners in advance, creating a new daily routine as things won't be the same as they once were. Make time for yourself and take your breaks. Plan a social distance catch-up with a colleague. Reach out to a work colleague and talk about your worries in a constructive way. You may be surprised how this really helps. It's important to set realistic expectations of yourself and the week ahead. It's perfectly acceptable to be kinder to yourself and do what you need to do to get by the first few days back in the office rather than take on too much. For some people, back to work anxiety is all about projecting ahead and worrying about what may or may not happen. Mindfulness and being aware of your surroundings can help you stay in the moment and improve your mental well-being. If you do find yourself particularly anxious on the first day back at work, practice deep breathing. This can help reduce these feelings. It's done by breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, with the focus being on your chest rising and falling for around 3 minutes. The key is to ensure that your out breath is longer than your in breath. We know exercise is good for our mental health, as physical activity releases brain chemicals such as endorphins, which help boost our mood. Although going back to work can be exhausting, making time for a yoga video, a short home gym class, or even just a walk can help us cope with feelings of anxiety. One of the hardest and yet more successful things we can do is think of the positives. Focus on the people or elements that you've missed to return to some form of normality. Write down what you're looking forward to about returning to work, seeing your colleagues, getting back into that routine. These are the things we can control and focus on, as opposed to thinking about the negatives. I'd like to thank you for watching this webinar on COVID-19 and managing return to work anxiety. I hope you found this enjoyable and informative. If you need any support or have any questions about the topic raised, please feel free to use the support available through our portal and app. Alternatively, you may be able to contact our counselling and advice helpline, which is available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Remember that the majority of us are all experiencing the same emotional response to the current situation. You're not alone in this. Take care of yourself, take care of others, be kind, and take one day at a time. Thanks again for watching this webinar.